Several minutes of commercial-free football starts now.
Here are the Purple Mortgage
Welcome,
Guys.
everybody, to another episode of Purple Mortgage Guys. Just Goose, we're two mortgage guys. Usually we're three with Tanner. He's not on tonight, but we do home loans. Love to talk about the Vikings. Season's over. We're still watching some playoff football, but we still like talking Vikings football. So wanted to record an episode tonight about Kirk Cousins, controversial figure for some reason, and what to do with the quarterback position going forward into 2023 and beyond. So Kirk's got 1 year left on his deal. There's maybe a temptation to draft a young guy. Trade for Trey Lance is kind of the hot rumor right now to bring him back to Minnesota, Marshall kid, or go another route. So Goose, all those options are on the table. Kirk checks down on 4th and 8, easy target on his back. Played awesome that game. Played awesome all year, really. I think you know where I lean on this, but we've not really talked about it, you and I. So what does Goose say about this all?
Yeah, I actually have no idea where you lean. So I'm really curious to get your side of it. But my initial thought, there's going to be some unknown here because obviously we don't know where Kirk and his camp is at with contracts and what they expect. We know from history that he's not really one to take discounts, but that was also closer to the prime of his career, the time that he had to take advantage of a payday. My initial thoughts are, and it has nothing to do with Kirk. I've been pretty satisfied with him with his time with the Vikings. I feel like he's been a good quarterback for the most part. This year was a little bit of an anomaly, but normally takes care of the ball, makes smart decisions, can make a lot of the throws. Maybe pocket presence has been a little frustrating sometimes with a kind of patchwork offensive line. But my thought right now is ride him out this next year. And unless he's willing to take a discount, which I would understand if he doesn't want to do, I think you have to plan on ideally drafting someone. It seems like all the teams that are doing really well right now are teams that have a quarterback on a rookie contract and taking advantage of those some cap freedom there, not having a huge cap number on your quarterback. And again, it's nothing to do with Kirk. I just think he's approaching the part of his career that he is likely to start to regress, kind of hit a wall. He's been super durable, which is one of the things I've loved about Kirk. I get really frustrated with players that can't stay on the field and can't stay healthy. But I do think he's going to get into that 36, 37, 38 year old range. And we've seen the Matt Ryans, the Ben Roethlisbergers, really anyone outside of Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers hit a wall there and regress pretty quickly. So last thing I want to do is be stuck in a $35 million, $40 million contract with an aging quarterback who, as good as he's been, doesn't really like put the team on his back and win a game by himself. So I think you draft a player. I'd be a little intrigued in Trey Lance just because you're seeing a lot of the success and how hard it is to stop a quarterback that can move and is big. Not only can run away from guys, but can also be hard to bring down. The concern there would be obviously he's into his contract already a little bit, so you wouldn't have as much time as you would with a rookie. I also get nervous with in his limited time with the Niners, he struggled a little bit, and that's about as friendly of a quarterback situation as you can get with their defense, their coaching staff, and their weapons. And most of their weapons are, it's not like a deep threat. Debo's not running streak routes. Ayuk's not running streak routes. They're guys that you can get the ball in a few yards and they can hit a home run with it. So that would definitely be a concern. But I think for the right price, if KOC thinks he can do something with him, then I've got a lot of trust in him. So my long-winded answer is play Kirk out this next year. If you can get a pretty cheap short-term deal done, great. I doubt that happens. So the plan would be move on from him.
I've got a pretty similar take as you do there, Goose. One thing I would rely heavily on is Kevin O'Connell and what he thinks he can make out of Kirk, because the Kirk of years past and this year's version, I really like this year's version. And if that can continue to build and he can elevate, and it's like he's being coached in the mind more than anything, like decision making and making those throws downfield. Yeah, it didn't play out in the playoffs. I think a lot of times we expect perfection, and if it's not perfect, then they're no good. Cut them. I mean, how many times you watch a game and you see tweets at halftime, fire them now, don't let them finish the second half on coaches and players and whatnot. But
yeah,
here's the thing with the quarterbacks is it's not an exact science. I just think of names that pop into my head would be Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold, the New York Jets situation as a whole.
Yeah.
Trey Lance is a great example. They spent 3 first-round picks to get their guy, and now their guy ends up being Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, which they're in a great situation. So it's a little bit different than every other team in the league. But you also got guys like Josh Rosen. Can go on and on. Most recently for the Vikings, Christian Ponder, which maybe was a reach, but it didn't work out, and it was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
So I think I am actually under the mindset of at minimum letting it play out, trying to extend it where it's a little bit more team friendly, even if the number's big. Maybe you've got some options to rearrange some things if you hit on a guy. And I've actually, we haven't talked about this before, Goose, but I've been saying this for several years, like just draft a guy in every draft, because you never know who's going to hit. You could have a Brock Purdy, you could have a Josh Rosen, but it is not an exact science. So I guess I'm a big fan of drafting one in the mid to late rounds, even if you don't need a quarterback, which we've done quite a bit at other positions, but never the quarterback position. I guess Kellen Mond would be the most recent example of it where we actually did, but for the most part, we just don't draft a lot of quarterbacks. So I would like to extend, if we can. Kirk is a pretty good negotiator. I don't think he's going to be given any discounts. At least he hasn't in years past, but we could do a lot worse at quarterback. Look around the league, the teams that didn't make the playoffs, the Atlantas of the world, the Carolinas, even Arizona now, they thought they had their guy. They don't. Las Vegas, talk about the Jets. It's not an exact thing. We've got a pretty darn good quarterback right now. So
Browns
I'm after
Baker.
a few weeks cleared, extend, let it play out, but I'm not trying to get rid of him and trying to get him to waive his no trade clause by any means. So
yeah, for sure. I think he definitely ride it out this next year. I'd like to think that Kirk, at this stage of his career, the amount of money that he's amassed, he's got commercials. You think about, all right, do we want to move our family again? Do I want my kids to go to another school? Do I want to win games? Because typically those teams that are going to pay a lot of money for a quarterback are normally historically bad franchises.
Yeah.
And so I think Kirk's got to look at it as a business decision, and I think it'll be a big tell. There's been a lot of criticism on whether or not Kirk cares about winning, or if it's all about, I think he had some Washington teammates after he left say all he cares about is his stats. I think there's been plenty of narratives that all he cares about is money with his contracts. I didn't see it that way as much. I also didn't think the Vikings made a terrible mistake like so many people thought, because the amount of times that a 30-year-old quarterback who's putting up good statistical seasons comes on the free agency market is unheard of. Like, it doesn't happen. And so he was going to get money, and he was really our only option. And then people look back and we could have drafted Mahomes, and it's like, well, we could have drafted, like you said, 20 of them that didn't work out. And so, and then the crazy thing is, maybe the 49ers don't ever go to Brock Purdy unless the injuries happen. And
they don't, for sure.
And so some of these guys, it seems like they are meant to be under the lights, and maybe Brock didn't really flash at practice. And so that's another tricky thing, is maybe maybe Kyle Sloter could have been the guy and he just never got a shot. So it's crazy. But one thing you made me think of is there's been a lot of talk about how much have the Wilfs had their hands in things. And I hope that they are at least giving Kwesi and KOC an opportunity to make their own decisions.
100% agree. That's with a lot of these aging players. And I'm not saying that you can't draft one early. You shouldn't be looking for that guy of the future, but you also have to realize that there's no sure thing, and it's probably 50-50 at best that you hit. And that's why I think you got to keep making those swings at guys and seeing what plays out. But I would think Kirk would be a guy that they could learn a lot from if they're a young guy. Maybe it is Trey Lance for what's a rumor today, a 3rd round pick. I don't know if that's realistic or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess we'll see what happens, but you've got to find a guy in the next couple of years, but you're going to need a quarterback. You also have to acknowledge some of these guys get thrown into the fire too soon, and they basically ruin their career by not sitting behind a reputable starter. So
yeah, and I think everyone knows that we're not in the position that we could take, because anyone who says they want to move on from Kirk right now, you have to have a good defense. And although I like where our offensive line is at, they're young. I think 2-3 years down the road, they're going to be developed, and we're going to have a really good offensive line, even including at Ingram. I think it's tough for a rookie to get in there, and we played some really, really good defensive lines this year. I think everyone's going to take a step forward. We're going to have a good O-line, but I think to throw in a young or unproven or anyone that's going to be available with a defense that's giving up a lot of points and aging, and there's going to be a lot of turnover, and an O-line that's young and still kind of getting together, it is not young quarterback friendly. Like Kirk is going to be your best option, and then you just hope that you hit on someone in the draft.
The other part you have to consider is, I don't think anyone out there doesn't like Justin Jefferson. You get a guy like Zach Wilson, and he's anointed the starter, and it doesn't work out, and it goes south. What are the odds JJ's real thrilled about that on the long term? Like, you could blow things up unintentionally by getting the wrong guy. So yeah, you could say, what are we scared of? We didn't really do anything this year with Kirk and the offense, but if that defense can improve even to be a marginal defense, and you've got another year of O'Connell's system and maybe a legit number 2 receiver, I feel pretty good about things going forward with Kirk, in the same, same version of Kirk that we've seen this last year. So,
yeah, that just made me think of the teams that are remaining. The Bengals have moved a little bit in that direction with like Trey Hendricks and Sam Hubbard and a couple of those guys, but every other team in the playoffs remaining, like, they built a lot around their trenches. Like 49ers forever have had a dominant D-line, dominant O-line, and then lately they've sprinkled in the weapons. Eagles have like 5 huge names on the defensive line, and even when they seem stout, they bring in Linval and they go get Sue, and like it's a winning formula. Their O-line is one of the best in the league, and Chiefs maybe not as much, but their O-line has been really good. They've got Chris Jones. They've got some guys, and it just seems like it's not sexy. Like, even last year, I really wanted the Vikings to pick Christian Darrisaw, and as much as I wanted to pick him, like, I was starting to see some big names. I might have said last year in the Christian Darrisaw draft, and every time a name was like dropping, I was like, "Ooh, that would be a nice pick." But obviously, Darrisaw worked out, and it's just hard. It's hard to root for a left guard or a center.
Hard to get excited about that, right?
Yeah,
but it is nice when you can plug them in for 10 years and not have to worry about it too.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, there you have it. We're both Kirk guys. I feel like we're not Cousins Crusaders, as you'd call it, but we favor Kirk Cousins to be the quarterback for next year and possibly the next few years. So if you're watching, you got an opinion, shoot us a comment below. We'd love to get some feedback. Make sure you subscribe to our page if you've not already done that. A lot of times we have a third member of our trio here with Tanner. Hopefully we'll get him on the next one. But in the meantime, hope everyone's doing well. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we'll be back again soon.